Patrick!
Adrienne!
I cannot believe I have Patrick Amar taking me on a Chanukah tour of the old city of Jerusalem.
It's my honor to be with you, Adrienne, and everybody on Momentum Boost here watching these videos around the world.
Uh-oh, we have a problem. I know we're supposed to be working, but Patrick?
What do we eat on Hanukkah?
Latkes.
Latkes. And sufganiyot.
Okay, donuts. Why? Why donuts here? I never had them in Toronto when I was growing up. I mean, maybe later.
They're delicious.
I know.
And the funny thing is that when I moved to Israel, I could hardly find a latke. Like, it's my tradition to make latkes for my kids, but in Israel, the tradition on Hanukkah is really to eat the sufganiyot, the jelly donuts. Here's the jelly donut.
It's like the traditional one, but like look at all.
But it's become like, oh yeah, it's become like an artisanal donut shop and show.
So just because it's fried in dough, there's nothing else.
Well, Hanukkah is the miracle of the oil, so we want to eat fried foods.
Right.
They're delicious.
See this one? See this one right here?
That's got my name on it.
That's got your name on it.
That's the one I want.
Do you want to go and get one?
I think this one. You're a salted pretzel kind of girl?
I'm a salted pretzel kind of girl. Let's do it. Let's do it. Let's do it.
Adrienne, there's no better way to celebrate Hanukkah than with a donut sufganiyah in the Jewish quarter of Jerusalem.
You know what the problem is with this one?
Nothing.
It's a little small. And I'm afraid that I'll have to eat it very, very slowly because it was the only salted caramel one there was. And this is my problem at Hanukkah. When I start the donut, I already anticipate that it's almost gone, and it breaks my heart.
See, my problem is, where do you bite it from? Because there's always that spot that has the most jelly. Yeah, with the hole.
Right here, where the jelly is coming out.
Mm-hmm. All right.
Let's begin.
L'chaim.
L'chaim.
I'm going to say a bracha.
Of course you
Because we're in Jerusalem, and these are holy foods, traditional foods of the Jewish people.
This is true.
To eat a fried something. You know, I have a different tradition, by the way.
What's yours?
You know, most people eat donuts or latkes. You know what I eat on Hanukkah?
What?
I make poutine. I'm Canadian from Quebec. I make French fries, and I use cheese and like a kind of like... Yeah, but a gravy that's not really meat, so I'm not mixing milk and meat together because I keep it kosher like that. And that's one of my traditions on Hanukkah, to eat poutine.
I love poutine, but not quite as much as I want to eat this. Make that blessing now.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei minei mizonot.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei minei mizonot.
My first donut of the season, by the way. You know how in America, like the day after Halloween, they put out the Thanksgiving decorations, and the day after Thanksgiving, they put out Christmas stuff?
For sure.
So in Israel, the day after Sukkot, they put out the donuts.
Oh my.
Right after the high holidays, we begin with the donuts. So, you know, we're in the Jewish quarter of Jerusalem.
Right.
And this street right here is called Rehov HaYehudim, Jewish Quarter Road, or the Street of the Jews.
Right.
So I always kind of joke with people when I'm touring. What do you find on the Street of the Jews?
Donuts.
Bakeries.
Bakeries.
Right.
Sure.
Gift shops. Synagogues.
Right.
Yeshivas.
Sure.
Right. Jews, because this is the Street of the Jews. And you know, eating baked goods is really a very Jewish thing. We like bread. It's important for us. You know, challah on Shabbat.
Sure.
So how about taking that dough and frying it in oil? Look at all this oil over here, all this grease.
You have to remind me. Thank you very much.
And, you know, we think of the land of Israel as like a land flowing with milk and honey, but it's also a land filled with olive oil.
Right.
And like today, we think of like, you know, Saudi Arabia or Dubai and Kuwait as these like oil-rich countries. But 2,000 years ago, the real like oil of the world was olive oil.
Is that so?
It wasn't just to like drizzle on our salad dressing. It was to light our homes and power our homes. That was like the main energy source. And this land is rich with olives, especially around Jerusalem and the Galilee. We are major olive oil producers to this day. I mean, not compared to like Italy, Greece, or Spain. They've, you know, really upped the game.
Right.
But the olive oil of Israel, it's one of the 7 fruits of Israel, one of the 7 species. And what do? It's always around this time of year, by the way. A couple of weeks ago, during Rosh Hashanah time, where the olives have grown. You know how to get the olives off a tree? Did you ever see this before?
I've never seen that process.
You know what they do? They actually like whack the tree. They do. You like shake the tree, you put blankets underneath, and the olives fall down. today it's all like automated. You can like YouTube and see how these like machines go and like shake off the olives from the tree, and then you collect the olives, and then you bring them to something like this. This is actually an ancient olive press right here.
Really?
And it's pretty cool that it's like right here in the Jewish quarter, and people are eating pizza and donuts and like not even noticing.
Was it transported here, or do you think it was originally here?
This was around here. I don't know that it was like in this exact location.
You know, I remember learning many, many years ago this idea that Jews are often compared to olives as well, because when you press us, when you step on us, which has happened in every generation, obviously, with Chanukah being the major theme here, something sweet still comes out.
Something sweet and useful, and amazing. Like really one of the, olive oil is like, I think, one of the underappreciated elements of the world. I mean, there's so much
Not
you
in our
can do
house.
with it. No, not in my house either. I love it. I actually started drinking like a tablespoon of olive oil in the morning.
Why?
I've been told that it's actually really good to just start off the day with a tablespoon or teaspoon of olive oil. So picture this, the olive tree is filled with olives, all right, and the harvest comes around and you shake the tree and all the olives fall into these carpets, you gather up the olives and you bring them to something like this. This is an olive press right here. And you can just put the olives in the bottom vessel here. A log or a stick goes through the hole here, and it's tied usually to like a donkey or a person that's walking around in a circle, and as they're walking around, this heavy stone is crushing the olives.
And where does the liquid go?
Right in the center over there.
And what happens to all the
Now
residual stuff?
this is like for display.
Okay.
A real olive oil factory, you've got a huge pit where the the oil goes into the pit. And then what happens? All the olive oil's there and all the gunk is there. I have a friend tour guide who says the first step is to mush it, then to gush it, and then to smush it. All right? And then it comes out, but it comes out with olive oil. The first pressing, right?
Extra
is the
virgin.
extra virgin. It's the first pressing. And by the way, that's the best and what was kept for the menorah in the temple, the menorah in the Beit HaMikdash.
Okay,
All right?
let me ask you something about that. When I was growing up, we used those cheap little Chanukah candles. They were 99 cents in the blue box. Do you remember them?
Of course.
And I don't know about your household, but there was always like 5 left over underneath the sink in the kitchen, which we used for birthday cakes, because we never had birthday candles. And then I learned of this principle of using the olive oil.
Yeah.
So tell me how that
I think
relates.
it's a beautiful tradition, by the way. Not only for Hanukkah, but I would say also for Shabbat, to use olive oil to light your Shabbat candles or your Hanukkah candles. There's something warm about it. I think it's the original lighting in the Torah is to use olive oil.
So with the Hanukkah story, when they only found one little cruet of oil that was sealed,
Right.
was it olive oil?
Of course. Of course. It was olive oil, and it was the first pressing. It was the extra virgin olive oil, and that was dedicated for the temple to be used in the lighting of the menorah, which was lit every night. And then in the morning, the wicks and the ashes would be cleaned, and at night, the Kohen would go in and light it again. And it was a big process in the temple to light the menorah.
But it had to stay lit all the time, right?
It had to light. It was lit from like all night, and that's what lit up the Beit HaMikdash. It's also what gives us, you know, the metaphor of being a light unto nations
Nice.
and spreading the light. You know, Hanukkah is during the darkest time of the year,
Sure.
right? The shortest days, the darkest days, and just one little candlelight or one little flame can light up a whole room. So going back to the olive oil here, what happens with all this olive oil stuff that ends up in the pit? What happens when you mix water with oil?
It separates.
All right, it separates naturally, right? The olive oil kind of rises up to the top. All the sediment and junk goes down to the bottom.
My.
And then you can just kind of like skim it. I'm making this sound very easy, but it is kind of natural. It's a natural process that to this day is not so different than we used 2,000 years ago.
So that's funny. It reminds me that I remember once also hearing that Jews are compared to olive oil as well, because even though you can mix us really well into overall cultures in different lands and different societies, that we always tend to be slightly separate. Oh, that was delicious.
Yum.
But let's talk about what's really going on, what Hanukkah really is.
Right?
Yeah.
What is Hanukkah really all about? I mean, is it just about the miracle of the oil? You know, really, it's remembering maybe history's first real religious war.
How
you
so?
know? Because when Alexander the Great from Greece, the Macedonian, conquers the land of Israel in the year 332 BCE, He's like the first emperor to come and not destroy Jerusalem and kind of like make almost like a pact with the Jews. And we greet him like Alexander the Great. Jews usually don't like it when somebody's called the Great. We call him the Horrible. But Alexander is like kind of unique in that way.
Didn't the Kohen Gadol, the high priest, bow down to him?
Exactly, Shimon HaTzadik.
Right.
Right? But then a couple hundred years later, as the, you know, the shift of power between the Greek Empire happens, then you're going to start to get this kind of like invasion of these new rulers of like the Seleucids and the Ptolemaic dynasty. And it becomes like this whole like civil war, and Israel's right in the center of it all. The temple's right in the center of it all. And it kind of shifts to like a war really of taxation, which we know is like usually like the cause of many wars.
Sure.
But also like a war of values and ideas. And when the Greeks try to outlaw certain like mitzvahs, like learning Torah or circumcision, or force the Jews to eat pork, like for many Jews, it's like the straw that breaks the camel's back. And that's what we know is like Matityahu and the Kohanim, and that go off to the countryside and start to rebel against the Greeks. I mean, you gotta imagine, this is like a few Cohens and Levis, you know, taking on the superpower empire of the time of the world.
Right.
And who is that? The few versus the many. And, you know, we always joke like in, you know, we're on the dinner table on Jewish holidays, they tried to kill us, we won, let's eat.
Let's eat, yes.
Hanukkah's like definitely one of those holidays. You know, they tried to kill us, we won, let's eat. And as we're standing here in this beautiful Cardo, what's left of the ancient Roman road, we can also just like feel the same feelings. You know, like any self-respecting Israeli tour guide should say, where are the Romans today? You know, like, it's not exactly the Italians, you know? They introduced certain ideas and values into the world, some of them that withstood the test of time, beautiful design and architecture.
Are these Roman or Greek?
These are Roman. These are Corinthian capitals and pillars from the ancient Cardo road here that's going to lead us to the art gallery that we're going to go visit.
Oh, fantastic.
But, you know, what did the Jews leave behind? Okay, so maybe we haven't left behind as much beautiful architecture and design, you know, like the temple in Jerusalem, which was the most beautiful building, is destroyed. You know, what's left is the Western Wall, a bunch of like stones in ruins. But to us, like, this is our holiest place. I always tell people that, like, you know, the Christians have a church, the Muslims have a mosque, the Jews have a broken wall waiting to be rebuilt. What a beautiful symbol that is, right?
It is. And in all of those values that the Maccabees fought for against the prevailing cultural norm, which was that Hellenistic culture, they exist still today. They are still, I think, the foundation of the world. So,
you know,
it was something to fight for.
It's a battle of identity.
Yeah.
It's kind of like why my name is still Patrick, you know, this like French-Canadian name that my parents gave me to fit into French society in Montreal, you know, but my Hebrew name is David, you know, and I think of myself as like Patrick on the outside and David on the inside, and I still feel this struggle of identity of what does it mean to be a Jew and what are our values and who we are. It's a battle we fought 2,000 years ago. It's a battle we're still fighting today, and I think Hanukkah brings that out.
I think you're right. All right, let's take your inner David and go look at some art.
Let's go.
Okay.
Adrienne, one of my favorite things about Jerusalem is the beautiful art. And we are in the Cardo, one of the nice art galleries here called Blue and White. This is Udi Merio's, famous artist here in Jerusalem, one of the first boys to move back into the Jewish quarter after the Six-Day War, and has been here ever since. And I brought us here to kind of look at this beautiful dreidel collection, because of course we love to play dreidel on Hanukkah. And all dreidels say, like, that 4 letters, right? What do dreidels say? They say Nes Gadol Haya
Sham.
No, Nes Gadol Haya Po.
Po. Well,
Sham or Po?
it depends where you are.
Ah.
Okay, so explain that.
Well, look, there's 4 letters, the Nun, the Gimel, the Pei, and the Hey. And Nes Gadol Haya Po.
A great miracle happened.
Here.
Yes, it did.
Right?
Absolutely.
Because we're in Israel, we say that a great miracle happened here. But if you're outside of Israel, you look at your dreidels, they'll have 4 letters, Nun, Gimel, Hey, Shin. Nes Gadol Haya Sham.
Right.
A great miracle happened over there.
Aha. It's so exciting to be Po, to be right here I like this one. I really like this one.
I like this one. This is a very artistic, beautiful dreidel here.
Now, I think he said that the way it works is that whatever holiday you're supposed to you spin it, and it lands on one of the Jewish holidays, and the person who lands on Chanukah, they're the winner.
Very nice.
Such a cool idea.
This gallery is standing on top of the wall of the time of the Second Temple, and just by our side is like the army post of the time of the Hashmonite, and which means literally the Nes Gadol, the big miracle, happened here, physically here.
Just out here is the ancient walls of Jerusalem from the Second Temple.
Yeah.
I always joke, that's why it's called Wall Street in New York, because that was the wall of the Dutch colony. And once the wall came down, they built Midtown and Uptown. Same thing in the Jewish quarter, just outside the wall here are the Christian and Muslim quarters, and you could see as the city expanded and got bigger.
You mentioned that each letter is a big miracle happened here. When Israel exists in 1948 and we have to do our first budget for the country, our Prime Minister said that he doesn't wait for miracle. He's already calculating the miracles in the first budget. So that's it. So it's part of our life.
David Ben-Gurion famously said,
right.
to be a realist, you must believe in miracles.
That's right.
Absolutely. So the miracles are happening
Thank you.
in the past and they're still happening now.
Thank you very much.
My
Tremendous.
pleasure.
Thank you so much.
Dear.
What an honor.
Thank you.
Adrienne, this beautiful menorah behind us,
So exquisite.
you know that's real gold. That's not fake. That is a
That's
real
solid gold.
golden menorah. It's not solid gold, and I'm going to be that guy for a second,
Okay.
because in the Torah it commands us to make a menorah. Moses is commanded in the desert to create a menorah for the Mishkan, the tabernacle, which
Right.
would then become the temple in Jerusalem. All right, so you take gold, throw it into the fire, and then shape it into a
Right.
7-branched candelabra, which is called a menorah.
Okay.
Right? The word menorah is like to give light, right? So any like chandelier is a menorah. But this is the holy menorah from the Beit HaMikdash. Now, not the original,
Of
because
course.
when the temple was destroyed 2,000 years ago.
It's in Milan.
Is it?
I think, well, I carried it off. There's the Arch of Titus shows an image of it. It's probably in the Vatican basement.
It's such a cool thing to go to Rome and see that Arch of Titus
Yeah.
and the Jewish slaves carrying the menorah back to Rome.
Right.
You know, that's a lot of value. This one was created by an organization here in the Jewish quarter called the Temple Institute.
Yes.
Which took it upon itself to kind of rebuild and build the furniture and the furnishings of the temple.
Wow.
In preparation for the building or rebuilding of the third temple. And in the meantime, it should be here on display as a learning opportunity and picture opportunity.
It's great, but
So-
Patrick, it's something I need to understand. When I was growing up, at Hanukkah, we lit the menorah.
No.
We called it a menorah.
Hanukkah, you lit the Chanukiah.
Okay, here you say that, but I grew up calling it a menorah, and it had 8 branches, whereas that one only has 7.
Well, it is a menorah because
Okay.
it gives light. So the menorah here is a Chanukiah. The menorah here is not a Chanukiah.
I have
a
never
Chanukiah
understood.
has to have 8 branches, and the 9th branch for the 8 nights of Hanukkah. When the temple was destroyed and the menorah was taken away, our rabbis instituted in the Talmud a kind of remembrance of the Hanukkah story, the miracle of the oil,
Right.
but also of the menorah in the Beit HaMikdash. The menorah behind us here is like kind of the official symbol of Israel. We often think of the Star of David, the Magen David, as the symbol of Israel. 'cause
But it's
on our
actually this,
flag.
isn't it?
It's actually this.
Now, I'm going to tell you something interesting that I like to think of. It's sort of a momentum thought. So you see that here are the 8 candles, and I want you to imagine that these 8 candles are actually the children in the family. And the shamash, which is the one that lights the candles, that's the mother. So the idea is that the mother is slightly elevated, right? She's not one of the kids. She's slightly elevated and slightly separate. And her job is to light each of those sparks, the souls of her children. only until they spark independently. And then she goes back to her slot, slightly separate. Isn't that a cool thought?
So is the father the match that lights the shamash?
Well, I never thought of that, but quite frankly, I'm talking to women here right now, so that's why I said mothers. Yes, it could be father too. Of course it could be father too. Of course it could be father too. But yeah, so that explains it. So a menorah is the light, like a chandelier or a spotlight or an LED light. Those are different kinds of lights.
Right.
And the Chanukah is the 8th one. They all have to be in a row, yes?
They have to be in a row. If you buy, it's such a thing to buy when you come to Israel or in your Judaica stores,
Right.
to have it on display in your home. I always say to people, bring a piece of Israel home with you, and this is such a Jewish symbol.
Truly.
You should know it's got to be like straight.
Yeah.
Right? All the lights should line up. They shouldn't really move too much, as far as I understand. Like they should be in like one straight line, and you should light them, for every night, starting on the right-hand side, and then adding another light every night, and then starting with that night's light and going progressively in that direction.
So in essence, what you're saying is you light the first on the right-hand side, the shamash lights it.
Yeah.
On the second night, you go to the next one. You light this one first, and then this one back into here.
Right.
So essentially, you're adding from right to left, but you're lighting from left to right. Is that right?
Exactly. And here in Israel, especially here in Jerusalem, people light their Hanukkah candles in their windows or even in front of their doorways.
Right.
It's the kind of thing to like have it opposite the mezuzah, so that you're connecting like some of the mitzvahs, the Chanukiah.
So your door
with
is
the mezuzah,
surrounded in mitzvahs, right?
in light and in blessings, so that
Beautiful.
your home is also filled with light and blessings.
And what's the whole idea about publicizing the miracle? Because I know that's a Hanukkah theme as well, and that's why they light outside.
It is. We want to kind of like tell the story to our children. We want to remember the story. As we were walking through the Jewish quarter here, I ran into a friend of mine, Rabbi Simcha Hochbaum, and I asked him, I said, Rabbi, give us a little thought about Hanukkah, on one foot. And he said, what do we sing on Hanukkah? We sing, Al Hanisim, Al Apurkan, Al Gvurot, Ve'al Tshuot, She'asita Lavotenu, Bayamim Ha'em, Bazman Hazeh.
Translate.
We thank God for all the miracles that happened in the past on these days, meaning it happened back then, but it's also happening right now. And we want to remember those miracles, that we're living the miracles even today, especially as we're sitting here in like a rebuilt Jerusalem. Maybe 100 years ago, the fact that two of us could be filming a video like this, disseminating it to the world, would have been like so crazy. And here we are. And so the miracles of the past are connected to the miracles of the present.
Such a beautiful thought. They're ordinary and extraordinary miracles. And the very fact that the land of Israel is here and that we are here and that the Momentum trips came back to Israel this year, this too is a miracle.
Totally. I connect to Hanukkah as well because it's my birthday. My birthday is the 4th candle of Hanukkah.
Well, I will be thinking about you when I light the 4th candle. Chanukah Sameach, my friend.
Me too. Hanukkah Sameach. Hanukkah Sameach, everybody.